Hi, I'm Leslie Kalarchian, and I'm at the Bishop Gallery in Brooklyn, New York. And on behalf of the Kalarchian family, I am proud to present an exhibit featuring a body of artwork from my grandfather, the late Yenovk der Hagopian. Yenovk was born in 1900 along the shores of Lake Van in western Armenia. And in 1915, when that region was under siege by Ottoman forces, Yenovk and his family fled toward Yerevan, which is the capital of Armenia. In 1923, he came to America and settled for several decades in Watertown, Massachusetts, where he found a large community of Armenian diaspora. Throughout Yenovk's life, he explored several different mediums as an artist. He was a painter, he was a sculptor, he did metal work, he was also a singer. He recorded several albums that were collections of Armenian folk songs that he learned as a boy while traveling through Armenia with his father. About a year and a half ago, my parents decided to refinish the floors in their house. And so they pulled everything out of the closet, and I started looking at all these paintings, and I realized there was so much work that had been stored away for decades, and it had gone unseen. The last exhibit that Yenovk had was in 1967. That was his first and only posthumous exhibit. And through a series of fortunate events, I met up with a friend, Carlos Pinto, who is an art historian, and I told him this story about all of this amazing artwork in my parents' closet. He was fascinated and then embarked on this year-and-a-half-long journey of research. Carlos actually introduced me to the group at the Bishop Gallery, and before they had ever even seen the artwork, they were really fascinated by Yenovk's story and felt that not only did the artwork deserve to be seen, but the story needed to be heard.
The first time that I saw the work of this man, Yenovk der Hagopian, I was intrigued by the period of life he was doing, because America was losing him naivety, him innocence, transforming the country to a modern country. The industrialism represented in the work, the influence of the big masters and the creation of the new American language of form and art. That's the reason Gorky for me is the founder father of this, in the relationship with this artist. He got nothing to do with Gorky aesthetics, but he, with Gorky, developed their own aesthetics, and that part of mix of Cubism, mix of Surrealism, mix of the influence of the big European masters, and the totally an American form of art from an immigrant point of view is fascinating. Every time that I see a new work, he got different periods, and you can read him integration to the country, from being an Armenian in the United States to being an American in the development of the new visual language.
Here at the Bishop Gallery, we primarily focus on helping to develop and grow emerging artists. And so to know someone who had lived, literally, May 24th will celebrate his 115th birthday, could still be considered emerging in some ways, was very appetizing. So we had agreed to do the show before we ever seen a single piece of Yenovk's work. And lo and behold, when someone tells you they found dozens and dozens of paintings in a basement or in a closet, you don't expect, you know, them to pull out Picassos or Vermeers or anything like that, right? You kind of temper your expectations. It did remind us of Picasso, and maybe not Vermeer, but, you know, Matisse or a Cezanne or an abstract expressionists that, you know, are famous for their styles world over. And here it is, this man, this survivor, the soldier was a contemporary of these folks. He was not, someone who was just influenced, but he was creating and discovering and exploring things like the machine age, themes like cubism, themes like surrealism and abstract form and abstract expressionism before it had a name.
Well, me personally, before I even saw the artwork, we wanted to display it, and that's the honest truth. It's not just the finished product. It's not just the painting. It's the passion behind it. It's the inspiration. It's where it comes from. It's where, what was the artist thinking? We can't necessarily capture that now because Yenovk isn't here. However, it's interesting that we're trying to figure that out through his works. That's another beauty of this whole project and this whole exhibition.
Above all else, his work and his life is a part of history. Is an important part of history, both Armenian history and American history.
I told them the whole story of Yenovk being a survivor of the Armenian Genocide and what happened to him here in America. And it's a very universal story. It's an immigrant story. And what's really wonderful about this exhibit is that you have artwork that are photographs of what he experienced as a child, as a boy in Armenia. And then you also see the other side of it. You see him as an immigrant in New York.
I'm an immigrant too, and this, I feel resonance with this work because after being almost 20 years in the United States, for me, I feel an American now, and I can try to speak with that language. This man, if you put a piece of this work in the contemporary form, in the street, and a mural in the street, even in graffiti, he's perfectly integrated to that modernism.
He came from a very rural village. There was farmland there, and now he's a young man in America, and he's immersed in this art world, and he goes to art school in Boston, and he's for the first time studying formally drawing and painting. He's also studying and working with his friend Gorky, and there are stories about them painting together in Watertown. They shared paints and canvases, and their friendship, it's well documented that their friendship continued, and Yenovk remained a close confidant of Gorky's.
He was a childhood friend of Achille Gorky, good friend of John Hussein, Saroyan, Jovenes, and he was in that fascinating part of the American history of the WPA. As he was an immigrant, he was a survivor of a genocide, and he was an artist who now come to our hands, and we have the opportunity to present back to the American contemporary history and see how ahead of him time he was thinking.
Having someone in here that was, firsthand account for such a historical event like the Armenian Genocide or the catastrophe, who then came to America and really was exploring themes and techniques that would end up becoming the first American school of art, abstract expressionism. And we're here in our gallery in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and we're able to get, the folks who are in the MoMA and in the Met, at the Jacob Lawrence and at the Basquiat exhibitions, and they come here, and they can get the same quality, the same level of significance, and the same, feeling that you get when you're in those places. To me, that's the icing on the cake.
I just want people to learn. I want people to learn about Yenovk and his plight and his story, because I truly believe it's an interesting story. You have a survivor, a painter, a sculptor, and you have this all mixed up in this multi-talented person that just never got his story heard. And it's like, for me, it's a classic example of better late than never, because it would be just unjust if his stuff never got to this platform and this plateau. So hopefully we could take it even higher after this.
To see these paintings finally on the wall is so amazing, because they literally now are in a different light, and it's bigger than I ever imagined it to be. And I really hope that the people that that come out to see the show will have the same feeling that I do when they look at the scope of Yenovk's work. It's an amazing story.
Harav Kamin vay gülüm 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 meçe koto sine tağır